Lanny, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Basically, the Funks, the Rhodes, the McMahons, the Harts, the Colognes, and the Poffos. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest wrestling family in history?
I would say the McMahons. I'm going to have to say that in all honesty. Because, it started with somebody's grandfather. It's like, this has certainly snowballed. And I had a 21-year career. Well, the 7 years I spent in the WWE were definitely my favorite years. As long as you're going to be a prostitute, you might as well be an expensive one.
Now, Lanny, I'm sure we're not the first to ask you this, but lately there's been this character in the WWE now. His name is Damien Sandow. I'm sure there's been lots of contrast between you and him. What are your thoughts in general about the Damien Sandow character?
You ever heard of Joe Gomez?
I'm not 100% on Joe Gomez.
He's a friend of mine, and he invited me to come to Steve Kern's training camp in Tampa. That's when it was in Tampa. I think they're in Orlando now with NXT. And he said, hey, listen, there's a guy that wants to meet you. He thinks you're the best and everything. So I went in there, and I was very glad because it was, about a year after Randy died or something. And, Ricky Steamboat was there, Dusty Rhodes, and Steve Kern, and I got to meet a lot of the old guys, the Mike Rotundo. They all had a lot of nice things to say about Randy and offered their condolences. And then they introduced me to Damien Sandow, and they asked me if I minded if he would steal my gimmick. And I said, well, first of all, I stole that gimmick myself from about 20 different people. My wrestling, I'd say the greatest influence in my effeminate style was Ricky Starr. Don't know it. Just go on YouTube and check out some of the wrestling stylings of Ricky Starr. The only difference between him and I, he was legitimate homosexual and I'm a fake one. And he was an actual ballet dancer, and I am not a ballet dancer. I did like 6 months. And also, he was in Purdue University. He was a boxer and a wrestling champion. So he had the best of all worlds. I knew that, let's face it, when you look at me, you're not afraid like you would be if the Macho Man were looking at you. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big guy, and I don't have that bad news brown look. So when I became a villain, I knew I would never make it unless I did something unusual. So I had about a month off to grow my hair out, buy a few caps and gowns, and work on my interviews. And I also, looked at a lot of old wrestling footage. And I stole a lot from Ricky Starr. And the poetry was easy. I mean, all you have to do is insult, the sports teams of that locale. Yeah. So anyway, I just, as a matter of fact, I was married at the time, and I was practicing my walk that I would use as the genius, and I was going back and forth, and my ex-wife, my wife at the time, and now my ex, she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working on my walk." She says, "You have the guts to walk to the ring like that?" And I said, "I don't have the guts not to." I said, "I'm not big. I'm not mean-looking. I said I could be a villain, and I'm not going to make it unless I do something." Now, Terry Funk told me many years ago that it's not good enough to be good. You got to be peculiar. And since I wasn't born peculiar, I decided to develop peculiarities, and that was the birth of the genius. But when I told Damien Sandow, I said, "Look, I stole the gimmick. I'm not the first person to wear a cap and gown. And besides, he doesn't do poetry, right?"
No.
No.
So, I mean, would you say that I stole a gimmick from Edgar Allan Poe or Henry Wadsworth Longfellow? In other words, the only real authentic thing that I had as a gimmick was I did my own poem before every match. Whether you think it sucked or was great, they were my poems. I didn't have a writer. And that's the only thing that I can say was unique and, my own, and nobody could steal. But you remember TNT, Tuesday Night Titans, and then they shortened it. It was on the USA Network.
Oh, yeah.
I was a guest on the TNT, and then I did a poem. And when they went to the commercial black, Vince McMahon said, "Lanny, that was great. From now on, you do a poem before every match." So I was like afraid that I would be boring and never be invited back. That was when I was Leaping Lanny. I had no gimmick. I was just brought in. They had no particular plans for me. So I just decided to play my aces, and win or lose, I would go down with my best. And I love poetry. And I actually love to write songs, but see, my singing isn't good enough, so it has to be poetry. The recitation, trust me, if I were a better singer, I'd be singing instead of doing poems. But it's a wise man that knows his limitations. So Vince says, "Lanny, that was great. From now on, you do a poem before every match." And I was so excited. And I'm still excited. I mean, what a great, it was such a lucky break. And I really appreciate Vince McMahon giving me that opportunity. And, I did so many poems. They can't all be gems. Some are better than others, and some aren't, But no, they were all mine. Nobody helped me. And if anybody would have helped me, I would have resented it.
All right.
Is there any that are your favorite that you can share with us? I don't know if I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but maybe those will stick with you. I don't know if there's a famous genius poem that you can give us.
"Behold this humble entourage, their heads are bowed in reverence at the very slightest whisper of one name, exalting in his splendor, which is altogether fitting, of the people and the lands from whence he came. False monarchies are commonplace as kingdoms rise and fall, but I, the genius full of glory and renown, say the Macho Man is everything that everybody everywhere would ever want to wear a crown. I say this king deserves a queen beside him on the throne, and Sherry is the fairest in the land. Nobody else is worthy of this monumental honor and the regal splendor of his royal hand. We witness the dethroning of one Jim the Hacksaw Duggan, whose crown and robe are in a state of ravage. I now remove my mortarboard and place it near my heart, and thus proclaim you Macho King, Randy Savage." That was the only time that Randy and I were ever together in a WWE ring.
Wow. That was great.
That was the Macho King coronation. I remember it like it was yesterday.
I was in Los Angeles for a fan fest, and a family that flew in from Manila of the Philippines came in, and they had a 10-year-old girl, and she must have been 4'0", and she recited that poem to me better than I just did now.
Wow.
And I said, "How did you learn that?" They said it was on Randy's DVD, that package of all his best matches.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they did the Macho Man coronation, and she played it over and over again. And she didn't even really speak very good English, but yet, because she listened to that over and over, and then she recited it to me, and I felt very good about it.
Wow.
Now, you just touched on it, but that was really the only time that you and Randy were in the ring together in the WWF, now the WWE. Do you wish that there was more opportunities where the two of you would have gotten to work together?
Well, I don't want to be one of those sorry-ass wrestlers that is always complaining about what didn't happen. I like to, in December, I am going to be 60 years of age. And I'd rather be the happiest man in the world. And how do you do that? By not feeling like the victim, instead like a victor. Naturally, if I were the booker, I would have had many, many more championship belts. But I wasn't the booker. I was just trying to do my best. And I am appreciative of the way it all turned out. I feel like there's a lot of wrestlers that gave more than they got. I'm one wrestler that got more than he gave. So I should be slapped in the face for complaining about what happened. It was a very good part of my life. I certainly enjoyed it and learned from it. And I know a lot of people with, I go to independent wrestling shows sometimes. They bring me in,
Mhm.
and I see young wrestlers that are willing to jump out of the balcony into a cup of water, and they're still waiting for their phone to ring. And I'm thinking, here I am, and I did very, very well with much less.
All right, Lanny. I mentioned earlier in the show that all the famous wrestling families. Since you're coming from a famous wrestling family, was there any friendly competition between you and your brother? Maybe even way before WWE too. Maybe down in the ICW. Did you guys, being brothers and all, did you ever have any competition with each other, or no?
You mean shooting?
Yeah, I mean, just like going out there, who would have a better match? Was there anything like that between you and Randy?
Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. No, because Randy always had the better match. Randy's lousiest match was better than my best one. So that was, once you establish that fact, you just have to accept it or not accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And like Ric Flair said, whether I like it or whether I don't. You know what I mean?
All
right. Now listen, Randy was he was the Macho Man and I was not. So there you have it.
All right.
Okay, now we learned recently you've been interviewed for the upcoming DVD that WWE is putting out on your late brother, the Macho Man Randy Savage. Is there anything you can tell us about that project? Who came to you to talk to you about it, or if it's? I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I can't wait because we don't have any real interviews about that. We just have the, like you mentioned, the matches DVD. So, is this a must-see DVD?
Yes, it is. Here's why. My mother didn't want to be in it, and I talked her into it. And she was phenomenal. She's going to be 88 years old in January.
Uh-huh.
And she's still, listen, I don't want to get negative. She's still harboring resentment that nobody offered her condolences from the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, look at it this way. This is not about the Macho Man. This is about the Macho fan. And they're the ones that gave him his lifestyle. They're the ones that made him go to the top of the mountain and live there for many, many years. And he had a great life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all because of the Macho fan. So I said, and I'll tell you something too. Kieran Bent is the man from the WWE that was the producer of this video. Now, after my father died and after my brother died, I sold my house and I live with my mother. And, I take care of her, and she has good days, she has bad days. But she's still got it up here. Her elevator gets to the top floor, and she doesn't feel 100% comfortable, with a live microphone like you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for everybody. And I said, if it were live, I could see where you have anxiety. Because, if you're lousy and it's live, that's it. You suck,
Mm-hmm.
But this is cherry-picked. In other words, they talk to you for an hour, and then they pick out little snippets of what you say, and then they mix it in with everything. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you are at the discretion, of the editor. They can make you look like an ass, or they make you look really great. Well, Kieran Bent came over with his sound crew and his cameras and everything. And what do you think he had for my mommy?
What's that?
A bouquet of flowers.
Oh, that's nice.
I tell you what, it meant something.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a charming person. And then about a month ago, I texted him and I said, how are you doing with the project? Is there any way I can get an advance copy, or do I have to wait till November 18th? So he says, we have a rough cut. I'll send it to you. And, they were asking me all these questions, and I just treated it like a shoot interview. And I had no idea that they would use any of that.
Yeah.
Because they used all of it. They used all the controversial things.
Mm-hmm.
And, there were a few things about it I didn't like, and there was a few things about it that I thought were phenomenal. But all in all, it is a must-have. November 18th, it's coming out. I don't know if you should I guess they got the expensive one or the inexpensive one, right? The one with, I don't know which one you're going to get, but you better get one of them.
All right, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say the expensive one that you're talking about comes with the upcoming one that you're talking about. It comes with the Macho Man Greatest Matches DVD. I think there's a T-shirt, some glasses, and a bandana. I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Well, I don't mean to get piddly with you guys, but you know why I don't give marital advice?
Why is that?
Because I'm a one-time loser. Because I was married once, divorced once, and I just went to my daughter's wedding. She's 30. She's in Lexington, Kentucky. I got to see my ex-wife with her new husband and everything, and I put on my happy face and I enjoyed myself. But I don't give marital advice because, why would you want to hear it from a divorced man?
Mm-hmm.
But what I couldn't help but notice, and I must mention to you guys, because I saw the rough cut of the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
It just does not cease to amaze me that the most vociferous detractors of the way Randy treated Elizabeth are not only divorced, but multiply divorced. Like, for example, Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah.
I just read his Wikipedia. It does not read like the New Testament. He's been married how many times? 3? I mean, what's he doing? Going for the record? and then he's standing there, talking about Randy's treatment of Elizabeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She didn't die in Randy's room,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And by the way, let me just say that Randy loved Lex Luger and never blamed him, because there's a disease going around called "it's not my fault" syndrome. But if I overdose at your house, that's my fault. That's not yours.
Yeah.
Unless you put something in my drink. But listen, if anybody, who put something in her drink, Elizabeth did. See what I mean? So
Sure.
why do you point, I wouldn't point fingers. I mean, she was over 18. As a matter of fact, she was in her 40s. So, but the thing is, when you watch this, this interview, it's amazing. The comments that a lot of, Dusty Rhodes was in it. He had nice things to say. A lot of good people, Gene Okerlund. But the 2 people that I called up on the phone to thank was Bret the Hitman Hart and Diamond Dallas Page, because their remarks were beautiful. Now, I don't see why anybody would use an opportunity like this to trash Randy anyway.
Mm.
Yeah.
I just thought everybody that was interviewed was divorced except one guy, and that's Pat Patterson, and he's a Rump Ranger. He doesn't play for that team. So, but still, the way they edited it, I would make a remark and then they would prove it by the other remarks. Believe me, it's fascinating. You really got to see it. I'm not doing it justice, but and who was great in the? I don't know where they found it. I've never seen it before, but they had highlights in it of an interview with Randy in 1993 or 94,
mm-hmm.
where he was at the fork in the road of his career. And it was like he was narrating his own interview, his own posthumous CD, DVD.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing.
Sure, yeah. Well, we're definitely going to buy it. I know our fans are definitely going to buy it too. And I was speaking of writing about some stuff. I mean, you touched a little bit about on alcohol awareness and drug awareness, and you've written 2 books already. and one was related to drug and alcohol awareness, directed towards younger children. Did you have any plans to maybe write any other books down the road, or anything like that you have in store for anybody or your fans?
Well, I've actually turned down so many offers for this from publishing companies because if I ever did it, I want to do it right, and I want to be perfectly honest. And I didn't want my mother to suffer any more than she already has. Because if I do it, it would be, the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, I've turned down quite a few offers already because I just think it's too soon. About the books that I wrote, one was Wrestling with Rhyme, and the other was Limericks from the Heart and Lungs. Now, Limericks from the Heart and Lungs was 335 limericks all about smoking. And thanks to a thing called Kindle, I'm now an international bestseller in both books.
All right.
In the Kindle edition. Now, I'll tell you why that means a lot to me. Because I've been turned down more times than a bedsheet by Random House, all the big publishing companies. Oh, they don't even turn you down. They just don't answer your letter. You see what I mean? And then even WWE didn't want to publish me. So when I'm an international bestseller, and that kind of, Kindle levels the playing field for the small publishing house.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
When I became international best-selling author in Kindle, in both books, I hate to be childish, but in the words of Eric Cartman in South Park, I made you eat your parents.
Now, Lanny, I have to ask a question that I'm not for sure how much you had to do with this, and I've only heard bits and pieces from different people. So I wanted to know if you could shed some light on anything that happened between the Poffos and the Dundees in Memphis.
Well, the day it happened, I was with George Weingroff, El Brazzero, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. We were in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we were at the World Fair in Knoxville. And then when I got back to Lexington, that's when the fit hit the shan.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And look, this is a part with the ICW. I was a hostage. Okay, I had absolutely no interest or desire to open up a rival promotion to anybody. I was happy just doing what I was doing, going from territory to territory, seeing the world. I loved the territories, and I was happy. But my brother, my father, and my mother said, "Hey, come join us in Lexington," and I did. And it was a family thing. Mm-hmm. And Randy thought it would be nice to challenge the other people, and he did. And I did not choose the ICW. Okay, I was drafted. I did not enlist. But family comes first, and I was the youngest in the family, and that was not always my favorite position. Marsha. I don't know if you know what that means. But
Absolutely.
That's it's the story of a lovely lady. Anyway, kicking and screaming, I went into ICW, and I was not happy about the fact that all this violence was occurring. I got into wrestling to be an entertainer, and I was only interested in the money I made, the money I saved, the money I invested, and also I'm not the best driver in the world. I've never had an accident, but I certainly caused them. So I like to do is I like to leave early for trips, so I don't have to make up for it with my foot on the gas, And a lot of my friends have died, and a lot of my friends have been injured. I think Magnum TA would have been one of the greatest wrestlers in the world had he not been in a car accident. But I digress. Anyway, I wasn't happy about hearing about Randy hitting Dundee. That was not, but that's life's about choices, and he made his. So, that's about the size of that. But I don't like to, even now, I don't like arguments. I don't want to fight. It's always the last resort of a limited mentality.
Sure.
But Randy enjoyed that type of thing. And anyway, I'm kind of water off a duck's back, and he's kind of mountain out of a molehill.
Gotcha.
Okay, and if you ever read the book or seen the title, let's see, what the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Yeah, Randy sweat the small stuff.
All right. Now, I know you've been asked this a lot, and I don't want to, have this be the millionth time you've been asked. But of course, we want to know. We want to hear from you on our show. When will we see the Poffos take the rightful place in the WWE Hall of Fame? Do you think it'll be anytime soon, or any thoughts to that?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be one of those unanswered questions, and it's going to go on instantly. Let's face it. You got a few things right. At least you got Bruno Sammartino in there.
Yes.
That took forever. And but you know what really pissed me off?
What's that?
Were you there in Madison Square Garden when Bruno got inducted?
Yeah, we were there.
Yes, we were.
Okay. You see a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman like Maria Menounos.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave the greatest speech I've ever heard.
I know where you're going with this.
About one of the best people that I've ever met in the wrestling business, Bob Backlund. Mm-hmm. Bob Backlund almost doesn't belong in wrestling because he's too nice. You see what I mean? It's like if what do you think of wrestlers? Well, wrestlers are this and that. But Bob Backlund is that and this. He's like the antithesis of what a wrestler is. He doesn't cuss. He doesn't drink. He doesn't do drugs. He won't tolerate, bad language. He lives by principles. And Maria Menounos went out there and gave the most beautiful introduction to Bob Backlund. And you people booed her. You suck.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this on our last show, Lanny, too, because we were talking about how many, a lot of the fans online will complain about stuff, but me and Jonathan, we always talk, we love pro wrestling, and we love going to these events, and we were talking about that the other day, right, Jonathan, to where, there was people there that were just booing or saying stuff at the event that we were like, why? We're here because we love it, and we respect you guys and all the wrestlers, and some of these fans, I don't know, they just come in there and they just want to boo because they want to hear themselves speak, I guess. I don't know, but we were just talking about that last show.
Yeah, it's but I mean, it's like you see, I know it's bad to boo, but who were you booing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is somebody. Now, if I had a son, which I don't, I just have a daughter and she's 30. But if I had a son, I would want her to be like Bob Backlund. Mm-hmm. That would be too much to hope for, really. I mean, that would be unrealistic goals. I'd be just happy if he didn't get tattoos and if he stayed out of prison most of the time.
Yeah.
But this guy is a phenomenal person here. And Maria Menounos, could you ask for a hotter girl to be,
exactly.
She's hotter than every diva.
Oh, yeah.
She's a very, she gave a hell of a speech, and she got booed out of Madison Square Garden. I said, what the hell is going on? It's like, well, then I thought of the joke. How many New Yorkers does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
None of your fucking business.
Well, I just want you to know before this goes any further that we didn't boo because I don't want to be on your bad side. I know that you said that you're don't sweat the small stuff, but I still am legitimately afraid of you. So I just I'm the most benign gentleman that you'll ever meet. That's what they all say.
Yeah, 10 arrests, no convictions. a perfect record.
So literally hundreds of stories over the years of wrestlers getting, and I'm using the term ribbed throughout the years. Were you ever a victim of those, or did you ever rib somebody?
I hate ribs and I hate ribbers.
Okay.
And I've never, except for Owen Hart, his ribs were diabolically clever. You know, he didn't ever mess with your suitcase, to my knowledge. He did, like, for example, he was sharing a room with Ken Patera. And Ken Patera was expecting a lady friend to be, you know, calling, and, you know, he had given her room number, his room number out. So he'd be chewing tobacco and spitting it into a cup. And then Owen Hart knew that he was hoping that, you know, that he would get, you know, a little company. So he knocked on the door, bam, 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 bam. And so Ken Patera got all excited, took the tobacco out of his mouth, rinsed his mouth out, went to the door. There's nobody there. So he put the tobacco back in his mouth and started spitting into the tobacco, hoping the girls show up. You know, so you know what? He knocked on the door 3 different times, and he fell for it 3 different times, and he never ever smartened them up. that he was knocking on that. Oh, you know, and that's pretty good. A young guy taking advantage of an older guy. You know, it's like he was a smart guy.
There you go.
I think a lot of the wrestlers were using suitcases for toilets back then. Okay, and I don't consider that a rib. And there was about when I got fired the first time, and then I was brought back as the Beverly Brothers manager.
Yes.
Randy said, "Hey, listen, things are different now. You've been gone for 6 months." He says, "Everybody's shitting in everybody's suitcases now. It's really bad here." And he said there was 8 guys doing it, and he named them. Okay, and so I had my cap and gown. And my first town was Rochester, New York, for TV. And I got there early, and I hid my suitcase so well that I could not find it myself. You know, I should have put a GPS on it or something. But you know what? Nobody ever used my suitcase as a toilet, and I think I have a reason why they didn't. They were afraid of my brother.
There you go.
But now I no longer have that advantage. So now I feel more vulnerable to whatever, you know, so it'll happen eventually. I probably deserve it.
Now, Lanny, is there, I don't know, any piece of advice you've ever received during your run in professional wrestling that, you know, you think that was probably some of the best advice you ever gotten that you might want to share? Or is there anything like that?
Yeah. Remember the Sheik, the original Sheik, the promoter of Detroit and Ohio?
Yep.
He told me, "Lanny, I'm not against anything that's going to get over." And I said, wow, what a fantastic thing to say. And if you think about it, does it really matter how you get over?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's so rare that anybody gets over because the public is jaded. They've seen it all.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? Like, there's 100 fantastic workers out there, and they're all waiting by the phone, can't even get a break. You know, and they got guys with 22-inch arms that are ripped to shreds. You know, you're going to have to come up with something that's going to get over. That's why I went to extremes with the Genius. You know, I decided to just go for broke because, you know, when you've been there 5 years as Leaping Lanny and, you know, you've been spattered on the windshield of life and they give you a break, it's like you can reinvent yourself. I was not about to take it lightly. And then I never forget Hulk Hogan grabs me by the wrist and he brings me into the shower room and says, "Lanny, you're working like a fag out there." And I said, "Do you want me to stop?" And he says, "No, I want you to do it more." He says, "Because I have an idea that I can make fun of you and mock you. Would you mind if I mocked you?" And I thought to myself, let's see, one of us is a jabroni, and the other one is Hulk Hogan. I guess it's okay if he mocks me. So that was a pretty good decision, right?
Oh
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I did okay that day in NBC. I went from zero to hero, and I had enough time to get back to zero again.
You know, I think that's sometimes the way the business works, but you had a heck of a run, I think. You're still going today.
I drank from the silver chalice of success for one brief shining moment.
You know, but like you said, there's people that are waiting by their phone, and there's some people that were in the business just as long and never got that. So
that's true. And I'd rather be known as the lousiest worker that made it rather than the best worker that didn't.
Absolutely.
You ever heard of Freddie Patek? He was a baseball player. He was 5'4", listed at 5'4". And they interviewed him. He says, "You are the smallest person in baseball, in Major League Baseball. How does that make you feel?" He said, "Better than the tallest guy in the minor leagues."
That's awesome.
You know, but I'll tell you what, Hulk Hogan hasn't done a thing for me lately, but I'm still appreciative. You know, he's still, so when I finally die and I get to put my whole life before me, the highlight reel is mainly because of him. Thank you, Hulk Hogan, for choosing me to mock.
Some people have trouble with Hulk Hogan. And I know that you said that you're really not into being negative or anything like that, but is there one person that you had trouble with during your time in professional wrestling, like someone that just rubbed you the wrong way?
Let me think. You know, I was very popular in high school, although I didn't actually know it. It's like I kind of took it for granted that I liked everybody, so they'd like me back. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't really give it much thought. Somehow when I got into wrestling, it wasn't as easy to be popular because I was a young guy, skinny, bad complexion. You know, I was just hanging around, didn't look like a wrestler, and I felt resented. And then slowly but surely I started making some friends, but some wrestlers are very, very nice and some are not. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when I was Leaping Lanny, I used to do jobs for people like Terry Funk. I loved doing that. I thought he was so great, and I was so lucky to be in the ring with him. And besides, he made me look better than if I beat somebody. And, you know, he would make me look good before he beat me.
Yeah.
And that's Terry Funk. Let me tell you, he was the man. And Harley Race, I didn't mind that. And Jake the Snake Roberts was so great. But the guy that I hated putting over was Bam Bam Bigelow. And I thought to myself, what a sorry-ass suck piece of trash they trying to build up here. You know, first of all, they call him a big man. He's not even big. I was taller than he was. You know, and they put on that zoot suit that he never washed. I wrestled him like 10 days in a row, and it smelled like ammonia.
Oh, God.
You know, it's like cat piss or something.
Yeah.
And he would get me in the leg scissors and stuff, and I said, there's got to be an easier way to make a living than this. and then he would beat me and never thank me. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm sure people like him. I'm sure somebody does. I did check Wikipedia and heard that he was, after all the money he made, he was a deadbeat father. You know, his ex-wife sued him for all this money that he had not paid for the upbringing of his child. Mm-hmm. You know, and this is an embarrassing thing in the news. So, I mean, there are people that have died in wrestling that I've actually wept for. His obituary I approved of.
You know, speaking of as a pro wrestler, what's the best thing that's ever happened to you because you were a pro wrestler? Is there anything you could tell us about?
Well, you get laid a lot.
Bingo.
And the thing is too, and you know, I love those groupies. I mean, they're phenomenal until they get married, and then they develop a different attitude. As soon as they get their promotion, you see. But I would say things that happened. I'm just lucky to be the son of Angelo Poffo. He imparted a lot of wisdom on me, and I'm glad I was listening. And it was just a good time. I'm just glad I survived it. Is all. There's car wrecks. There's things that go bump in the night. You got to be careful. It's not always. And try to keep your name out of the news.
There's certain things that you're doing these days. You mentioned that you're still going around doing some independents.
Okay, I'm going to be, just go on geniuslannypoffo.com.
Okay.
That's geniuslannypoffo.com. And I had just talked to Frank Milano of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York, October 25th. I'm going to be signing autographs in Amsterdam. Okay. I'm also going to Montreal and Ottawa and Toronto for some Comic-Cons. And, I just don't have the dates for you, but I think November 22nd stands out. I don't accept all the, if the phone rings, I may accept it, I may not, because unless I really want to do something, I really don't.
Sure.
Okay, because there was a time when I would take any offer that I would get. Now I'm a little bit more, for a few reasons. Number one, my life now is the aristocratic pleasure of doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And also, my mother needs looking after, so I make sure that if I leave town, it's for a good reason.
Now, Lanny, this brings us to our little lightning round. It's basically almost like a word association, if you will. What is your IQ?
Oh, hi.
Okay.
Wait a minute. High for a wrestler, medium for everybody else.
All right.
You worked with the late Kurt Hennig. So can you give us one word to describe Mr. Perfect?
Maestro.
Right. Who is your favorite poet?
Favorite poet would be Shel Silverstein.
That's a great one. And your favorite macho moment?
Favorite macho moment? There's so many macho moments. Oh, yeah. Favorite macho moment was Randy and I would go to the Special Olympics, and you ought to see him interact with the kids. It was just, God, it's beautiful to watch him do that. And they treated him like the Beatles of 1964.
Wow. All right. Who is the greatest wrestler of all time in your eyes?
Okay. Greatest wrestler of all time, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers in the 50s and 60s. In the 80s would be the Macho Man Randy Savage. In the 70s, I'm going to go with Terry Funk and Jack Briscoe. In the 90s, I got to go with The Rock and Steve Austin. And then I'm going to have to say Rey Mysterio in later dates. And I'm not a good guy to ask about what's going on now because I don't watch a lot of television anymore. I do have a Roku where I have Pandora and, different things like that, but I'm just not a television guy.
All right.
Anyway.
And lastly, the last one we'll ask on the lightning round is one word to describe Vince McMahon.
The real genius. And I know that's 3 words.
That's perfect.
He's a perfect combination of balls and brains. And I always thought if you had balls, you couldn't have brains. If you had brains, you can't have balls. I would always choose brains when I got to the fork in the road, but he's got both. He's got a pair and a spare.
Awesome. Well, Lanny, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it, and we'll be hopefully hearing from you soon.
Okay, and my books, Limericks from the Heart and Lungs and Wrestling with Rhyme, are available on Kindle. So check it out and do it. And thank you so much. By the way, I speak 11 languages. Escuchen, por favor. Santana comes from Mexico. Yo hablo más mejor. The French I speak is magnifique. They told me in Paris. My Italian's molto bene. I learned when I was 3. I speak Latin, Greek, and Russian, Hebrew, and Portuguese. I speak Swedish and Norwegian, and I'm learning Japanese. Aside from my intelligence, I'm cunning as a rat, and I shall put these attributes to use upon the mat. I remind the competition and every foe and fan, behold, the world's greatest genius, the world's smartest man. Thank you.